You're listening to episode 125 of the D6 podcast, and welcome. We are live on the internet right now, so if you guys are listening, make sure to leave lots of comments below about how handsome I am, and also, hey, we have Ladies Night. It's actually Ladies Day at the D6 conference. We have some amazing guests on our panel here. We're going to be talking about all of the issues, and I mean all of them, that affect women in ministry, and also just the women that you guys are ministering to in your churches, and even young women that are growing up. There's a lot of stuff we're going to unpack with this amazing panel, but my friend Ron, please, let's begin talking about who these women are that are with us.
Absolutely. We have some of the most capable individuals and ministry leaders here with us. And as you can tell, we are truly live.
Yeah.
And I'm a little nervous for how live this is going to be.
We got this, Ron.
We do.
I mean, 125 episodes.
Watch
you go,
it.
man.
That's right. I tell you what, I'm going to introduce the two ladies to my left. You got the two ladies to your right. And we'll get started with these questions. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Okay. Standing immediately to my left is Sissy Goff. She is so capable as a counselor. In fact, I connected my daughter with her, who's looking to be a counselor one day. She is without a doubt a passionate lady who loves talking to families and young girls about passionately pursuing Christ, working on relational issues. And she is, get this, Jeremy, you ready for these initials after her name?
Bring it.
LPC-MHSP. I knew the first three, licensed professional counselor. I know. I knew the licensed professional counselor. I had to Google the other part, mental health service provider.
Wow.
You know what? I think they're going to do therapy with us before this is over.
Much needed. Free, too. Free, right? Sissy?
That's right.
Free.
She's a counselor at Daystar Counseling Ministries in Nashville, Tennessee. She has a master's degree from Vanderbilt, nonetheless. And she speaks to parents and children's ministers all across this nation and has written many books. To her left, Lydia Randall, a friend from many, many years, quite a capable children's family ministry leader, wife, mother, adoptive mother. Incredible to know her story and what she's done in growing an incredible children's and family ministry there at Lake Point Church, where Home Point Ministries is embedded in. Literally, her faith path, Home Point, helps tremendous families day in and day out, but they have grown this to reach campuses all over North America and around the world. I was in South Korea, and there were people there using Home Point. So, I mean, your reputation, your ministry's going worldwide, global. Thanks for being with us today.
See, usually we're bragging on these people when they're not with us.
I
It's kind of
know.
awesome to be staring at you
I get
while
to
we
look them
talk
in the
nice
eyes
about
and-
you.
Yes.
Well, okay, Ron, good
Here we
job.
go.
I've got two more over here.
Let's do it.
This is Dr. Laverne Tolbert, everybody. And if you haven't seen any of her interviews or heard her on the podcast, you've been with us a few times now, right?
Yes, I have.
I want to make sure I get your title correct. You are the Vice President Editorial for Urban Ministries, Inc.
Exactly.
That's what I'm talking about. And you have written an amazing book, Teaching Like Jesus, a practical guide to Christian education in your church. And then you just started. What was that? Tell me that website that you just told me about.
Sunday School Made Simple.
SundaySchoolMadeSimple.com, a YouTube show. Did you know that?
Oh, no, I did not. But
Well,
ask her how many
brand new.
printings of her book she's had.
How many printings of your book have
Oh
there?
my goodness, I forget. It's up 18 or something
A
like that.
cajillion, everybody. Did you hear that? That's what I'm trying to tell you. Dr. Laverne Tolbert has written a cajillion books, and she's here. This is also Candy Galley. No pressure, Candy, right? Candy, I've been able to, I get to interview her later. I've been able to kind of understand what the impact that she makes. She and her husband lead a church, Long Hollow. It's Long Hollow Community, right?
Long Hollow Baptist.
No, bring it on. Long Hollow Baptist Church in Hendersonville, Tennessee. She's written, taught, and encouraged women for decades. It's going to be so awesome to have your perspective on this panel.
She
Thank
has
you
a
for
new
being
book
here.
coming out too.
Are you kidding me? A new book? Tell me.
Yes.
It's called Disciple Her, using the Word of God, the work of God, and the wonder of God to invest in women.
Wow.
So I'm so
Oh, man.
excited.
Disciple her.
Yes,
Sweet.
thank you so
Pre-order
much.
now.
I'm telling you, we got all kinds of stuff going on, but let's just kind of jump in for what we're here for today. And we're going to be talking about the issues facing women. The first thing I want to start off is all of you at some level you are a woman who is doing ministry. If you could speak to the women who are listening to this that are women doing ministry and offer them just a source of encouragement. Let's give some warm fuzzies to start. What would you guys say to encourage? If you could give a pep talk to the women listening, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. And I think my heart and passion is walking alongside of women. I'm in ministry, but I feel like every woman is in ministry if you're a believer. And so getting to walk alongside women and help them understand it's not only about sharing the gospel, but about sharing their life. And so I love to see women embrace that and begin to invest in other women by sharing their life and being transparent with them. And I think that's something that's hard to do, I think, today.
I would share with women, I would say that, sometimes it gets lonely. It feels very lonely in ministry, but as women in ministry, we are never alone. Just imagine, Jesus is sitting at the right hand of the Father, making intercession for us. The Holy Spirit prays for us and makes intercession for us. So we have help, we have advocate with us. We're never alone. And then we have the company of one another, as she was so carefully saying, that we share one another. We share our pains, we share our challenges, and we're in this to win this. We want to win the lost.
I love that phrase, in this to win this.
Yes.
Wow.
I would jump in with one of my favorite verses about girls is Psalm 144, where it talks about, may our daughters be like corner pillars cut for the structure of a palace. And I think whatever age of a girl you are out there, whether you're in ministry, whether you're a mom, whatever you're doing, corner pillars are strong and they carry a lot. And wherever you are, we get that. And we know you're doing great and want to remind you that you're doing great.
I think kind of piggybacking on that, just that we are a daughter of the King. And just the joy that He's uniquely gifted each one of us to carry out a purpose. And that I think sometimes we get distracted by what somebody else is doing or comparing. And just that we embrace that I've been uniquely called to this specific thing and God's equipped me for that. But He's also He's gone before me in that, and cheering each other on. I think we have just the beauty of the body of Christ to just cheer each other on. We all are on the same team, and when one of us wins, we all win and the kingdom wins. And so be a cheerleader for one another and hold each other's arms up in ministry, especially other women.
Wow. Well, I want us to transition. You just gave advice and counsel to other ladies that are out there. And as Meredith Andrews kind of gives us this background music to talk to through this podcast, I want you to shift your focus to teenagers and young ladies who are coming up, whatever age. Our kids are getting phones earlier now than they've ever gotten them before. And so many young ladies, young girls are being impacted by social media, by the internet, and all things technology. So what are some of the major pitfalls that you see young girls struggling with as it relates to screen time, maybe things that adults don't know about? I want to toss that question to you, Sissy. Will you answer that one?
Yes, I would say just so many things. And I counsel girls on a daily basis, and just sitting and hearing them talk about the impact of that, whether it's, what you said about comparing each other and seeing everything they're not invited to on social media, or even talking to a girl recently about Snapchat streaks, which they're doing so much now, and a girl saying to me, I have a friend who has a Snapchat streak for 600 days. Can you imagine having to communicate with anyone 600 days in a row? I can't fathom. And I'm working on some new material right now about anxiety in girls and how it's a childhood epidemic in America, but it's twice as likely to happen in girls. And I think social media is such a piece of that. And so for us to continue to arm them with truth and perspective and awareness, and even help lead them to places where they're giving and outside of themselves, I think makes such a difference in light of that.
Any advice, just a quick follow-up, any advice you give the moms whose kids are really connected, maybe in an unhealthy way? What are the starting talks that they do to address that? And I'll toss that to you, and then anybody else who wants to address that, and we'll move on from there.
Yeah, I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts too, but I think don't be afraid to take it away from her. Don't be afraid to pull the phone out of her hand and say, we're going for a walk, we're gonna get the dog, we're gonna go play outside, whatever it is at any point. That for her, what she's really wanting is connection. And that's such an artificial way to do it. And so to look you in the eye and to engage with you and for you to delight in her in that, I think it is so powerful.
That's good.
Can I add? I would say that moms need not to be on the phones themselves. that as parents, we have to monitor our use of the media, digital media,
good.
because sometimes we're setting a bad example. The children, I've seen families at dinner at restaurants, and the parents are on their cell phones, and of course the children are going to be on their cell phones. The parents are not engaged. So it's up to us, really, to do the leading by not being so dependent.
Now, I'm okay when you talk about the kids, but you need to chill. Messing with me. I'm a grown man. I'm just kidding. No, thank you for that. Candy, did you have something on that?
I wholeheartedly agree.
Perfect. Now, Dr. Tolbert, I'm going to come back to you because I want to read a quote about your book, because I know y'all may not know this. Listen to this. This has been called the best book on Christian education written in the last 20 years. Come on now, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask from you, because with all the stuff we're talking about as young girls are growing up and all these things, one of the solutions is the church, right? And what they're learning in the church. But give us some counsel as children's ministers and youth ministers that are listening to this online and that are listening to this on our podcast. What are some ways we can maximize the time that we're given at church with the girls specifically that are in our care?
I would say that we have such a model in Jesus. He is our role model because the way he interacted with women and girls really gives for us a picture. It helps us make a paradigm shift from what we're seeing today and what should be or could be. And let me just backtrack that and say, not everyone is doing it wrong. So many people are doing it right. We see in Jesus, he validated young women, he validated girls, the woman at the well. Jesus went out of his way to minister to her. She became the first evangelist running to tell the good news. He validated the woman caught in adultery. He validated the woman with the issue of blood, and he was on his way to heal that young girl. So many times we see Jesus felt that women and girls, females, were important and necessary. And so for children's ministers and youth ministers, we can validate young women and young girls just where they are and say, I believe in you, I'm proud of you, you're doing a great job. You said something about cheerleading earlier, and everybody needs a cheerleader. Everyone needs to say, I really appreciate what you're doing, you're so good at this or that, and not always just look at the outer and say you're so pretty and the way we dress, but look for qualities on the inside. What do we see? Compassion, we see good listeners, we see people who care about other people. If we notice those qualities and highlight that and validate that, I think we encourage young women in ministry, in our ministries, yes.
That's good.
Let's take these qualities a little further. I want to toss this to Candy over here. Our young girls are looking at culture, they're looking at media, both online, TV. They're being presented with an ideal image, and then we have an image rooted in Christ. What's one way that you found effective in teaching those young ladies how to pursue their identity rooted in Christ, not rooted in culture?
Yeah, I think it's such a good question. And I mean, it definitely all goes back to the word of the Lord and being rooted and grounded in the word. I think so often, my husband and I, we talk about this all the time, and we always say, facts precede faith and faith precedes feelings. But yet so many people put their feelings first, and they operate and they make decisions based on how they feel. And while they may feel
Girls
something,
particularly.
yes, while they may feel what they feel is legitimate, and it might be very real, it doesn't necessarily mean that what they're feeling is true.
That's right.
And so the fact that driving them back to the word, and I tell girls that I get to meet with all the time, it is always going to be the world versus the word every time. And every time we have to go back to the word and measure it all up against the word of the Lord, and that should direct our paths. That, right like thinking will direct in right living. So if we're thinking correctly because we're filling our minds with the word of the Lord, we're gonna live in that manner. So
Let's have church in here. That was good.
I'm telling you.
Thank you, Candy. Hey, listen, I want to come over here, Lydia, to you, because we talk about that identity. We talk about the importance of that. But another buzzword that we see that girls, particularly and parents of girls, and people who work with girls, we want to fight against that spirit of entitlement. Somehow that's kind of crept in as kind of a way to describe our younger generations. And how can we help them have that identity that we talked about without succumbing to that entitlement?
I think when I think of entitlement, that's in direct opposition of the gospel. Entitlement says, I deserve this, I have a right to this. And then on the flip side, the gospel says, I don't deserve any of this, but God's grace has gifted me with this. And so I think we have to combat this, okay, I don't deserve any of this. And I think that comes in two parts. I think we see the example of Christ, who really did deserve everything and laid down his entitlements so that we could share in his glory. And so I think a humility, I think that we realize apart from him, we are nothing. And so we come with that just humble spirit. But there's the second part of that has to marry it is a confidence. And that's a confidence that I have worth and value because what Christ has done in and through me. And so I think balancing that I'm humble, but I'm confident, and having a right mindset of the whole gospel message that really combats that entitlement kind of culture that I feel like we're living in.
I was counseling a girl recently who said to me, I've realized that the closer I get to Jesus, the more I treat people like peasants.
Wow.
How about that for entitlement? Yeah,
Wow.
I would love for her to spend some time with you instead of me.
That's great.
Yes,
That's
isn't that
great.
fascinating?
You know,
Entitlement. Wow. Yeah.
It is about changing the attitude of our kids. I
Yes.
mean, they're growing up, they're becoming independent, and I'm convinced more and more that the one item most missing in our families is the art of good conversation. We do not know how to do good conversation. I spend a lot of time speaking on that one topic, and it's not very in-depth, it's not very complex. So talk to moms out there who have young girls who are growing up and starting to withdraw from mom. What is this is a jump ball question. One or two of you jump in, three of you, all of us, whatever. What is one thing a mom can do, practice, connect, to earn the trust of their young daughter, or maybe their children as a whole, male or female, in hopes that they would feel comfortable sharing anything with them so that the parent can be that primary counselor, not culture, not peers?
I'll tell you what I did raising my daughter. I did D6. Deuteronomy 6, when you walk along the way, you teach your children. When you rise up, when you sit down, which means that we have to spend time with our kids. There's no way to disciple our children or develop a good relationship unless we are spending time with them. And so hanging out, being with them, putting down, turning off the television, getting away from the internet, the devices, all of that, and then having conversations. And I think we have a great opportunity to be honest with our daughters and share appropriately some of the challenges that we've experienced and tell them from our heart what we want for them and how we see their future, how we pray that they obey God, that they're right thinking, as you said earlier, so that they are right behaving.
I would say, just piggybacking on that, just those environments that you create for your home in a way where you're able to say, gosh, I really missed the mark on that. The way that mom responded to you or to dad or in that situation, that was not honoring to the Lord, and I need to come and ask for forgiveness and show them a correct model of how do we walk and how do we fail and how do we come back to that. Also, I would say a very simple thing to do also in earning trust with our kids is being protective of what we share that's their information and their story. I think we live in such a culture where we just share everything. I'm eating a hamburger at so-and-so with this person and I've got this on. We share so much information, and I think that sometimes creates just a difficult time with our relationship with our kids. If we're posting embarrassing things about them or things that they have trusted us with. And so I think just a very practical asking permission before you share information. That's something that I feel like my parents did very well with us growing up that I learned and I've gotten to do with my children. And there's been times where I've been speaking and I've asked, hey, would y'all feel okay if I shared this? And my son has said, I really don't. That kind of embarrasses me, Mom. And so that's a time for me to show him respect and say, I'm going to honor you and that would embarrass you. And so I want to build that trust with him, that he can trust to go through things with me.
For him to say that to you means he trusts you, we'll say. Yeah. Yeah. The only thing I would add, and I'm going to be a little less kind, I think, than y'all were, but counseling 25 years at this point, I really believe that every parent has one child that pushes their buttons more than the others. And it's often the oldest child of their same gender, or it's the one who's most like them. And so I think out of that, sometimes moms can be harder on girls. And so creating a safe place and earning trust, I think, is just being aware of sometimes are you critical in a way you don't mean to. And maybe it's about the things in yourself, but just to be aware of encouraging regularly. And like we were talking about with women, just reminding her that you're on her team as well, I think is so important.
Yeah, I kind of, this is what I thought of, but the art of being calm, because, I have 2 boys, they're 10 and 8, almost 10 and 8, and, they'll come home, so-and-so said this at school or whatever, and my instinct is to be like, what? And then, but I'm like, oh, really? Like, tell me. And so I've just realized as I've been raising them, the more I can stay calm about whatever it might be, the more they feel comfortable like talking to me and sharing it with me. And so that's something, because I would say I'm not calm by nature, that's a little bit hard for me, but the Lord's working, on me. But anyway, so I would say that, and just, you mentioned it earlier, Ron, but just engaging them with questions. Like we have that dinner time, where we sit down and everything else goes to the side and we ask them just questions about their day and how they're feeling, and good things, bad things, unexpected things, and just trying to be with them, like spending time with them and just hearing from them and kind of picking up on the opportunities that we can say, hey, well, you know what the Lord's doing in this situation or in that situation. But
that's good.
Dinner time, important. Sitting down at dinner together.
So good.
Yeah.
Families don't do that as much, and that's where a lot of conversation occurs.
We call them our tech-free zones.
Yes,
It's
that's
the car
right.
and it's the table,
That's
and all the
right.
devices go down. In the car, it's like they can't exit. Like you have, you've
right.
got
It's the best
undivided
time.
attention.
Yeah.
That's right.
You miss those opportunities.
And I feel
if
like at
you're-
bedtime too, because no child wants to go to bed. So I'm like, okay, you don't want to go to bed. I'll
It's a
sit in
great
here and
time.
we'll
Yes.
pray, we'll talk, we'll sing, because they don't want to go to bed, So I'm like, we're capitalize on that, 20, 30 minutes, some good time there.
Genius. But y'all are messing with my television shows and all my, I'm upset now.
Yeah.
Aren't you glad you're grown now
I
and
know.
not being raised in this environment now?
There you go. Hey, so let's go to the other side. And Sissy, I'm going to let you start this off. Because women are nurturing, relational in general, and sometimes they take the approach as a mom with a daughter of let's be friends, maybe along with or instead of parents. What's the kind of the thought behind that? Why do women want to do that when they do? And if they find themselves in that place, if they're honest enough with themselves about it, how can they get out of it?
Oh, that's a good question. You're making me pick on them a lot.
You're the tough one over
I
here.
know. I don't like being the bad guy. How about that?
That's the
that's
answer,
it.
yeah.
I don't want to be the bad guy, and I want to be liked. And I think it's easy to fall into that place, and then all of a sudden you're buddy parenting, and you don't mean to be buddy parenting. But one of the things is that we talk about a lot is boundaries create security in kids. Bottom line, makes them feel safe. And there's something about when a child feels stronger or bigger than their parents that it's too much power and it makes them feel insecure. And so really, even though they push against you, they want you to be bigger and stronger. And so that's going to create more safety and more respect, and it's going to end up making them feel better about themselves in the long run. But it's easy to get that flipped around, and I think just to keep remembering, well, actually, this story I think is my favorite example of ever. Sometimes when we speak locally in Nashville, we'll take groups of kids to answer questions, like in a Q&A, and I was speaking to 7th grade moms, and I took some seniors in high school, and this mom said to one of the girls, what's one of your favorite things your mom ever did when you were growing up? And this girl said, well, when I was in 7th grade, because we know this is the pinnacle of this, she said, my mom and I would fight, and I would say, why do you always have to be the mom? Why can't you just be my friend? And she said, my mom's answer was, there will be a day that you and I will be friends, but it is not today. And I could actually care less how you feel about me right now. And this girl said, every time my mom said that, I thought, I can't wait. And that's what it is. I mean, they long for that so desperately, even though they push against it sometimes.
Wow.
Great answer.
That
Anybody
is,
else on
that
that?
is.
Are we good? All right.
All right, moving on then. In your opinion, what do girls most need from their moms? What do girls most need from their moms?
Yeah, I have truth. You know, they need, and I mean, so much of what you just said, Sissy, it's just they need a mom to be a mom first, a friend second. Moms don't need to shy away from the truth. The truth is hard, and doing the right thing is most of the time hard. And I can just remember growing up, even in college, through my rebellious period, my mom never shied away from telling me the truth, getting in my face if she needed to. And those are the things today that I respect and remember about her the most. It's those hard times when she said, you know what, I'm gonna tell you what right and wrong is. I'm gonna tell you what God would want for your life, and not shying away from that. She was my mom, she was my parent, and we're best friends.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
so.
That's awesome. Anyone else on that one?
I would say they need a role model. They need an example in their mother that they can, you know, we want to be like somebody and our children want to be like us. And so if we are the role model, we are the example, if our relationship with the Lord is truly genuine and authentic, then as we're living it out, we're helping them live authentically, and they want to be like us when they see us, the way we dress, the way we carry ourselves, all of that. If we are the example, I think that's the best way, one of the best ways. Truth, role models, and
I'll jump in and say I love everything you all said.
Are you going to be mean again?
No, I hope not. I don't know. I keep doing that. I think for girls, and again, I'm writing so much about anxiety. I just have read 23 books on anxiety. So if I start twitching up here, I'm so steeped in it right now. But there's such a lack of empowerment in girls, and related to that, the number one complaint I hear from girls about their moms is that they try and fix it. And so I think to champion them, come alongside them like we've been talking about, but to ask really good questions. I mean, we talk so much at Daystar about things like, that sounds really tough. What do you want to do about it? That sounds so hard. You are so smart. I know you can figure this out. To keep going back to things like that where they're connecting the dots, they're trusting their own voice.
I would say just being available. I think just as moms, sometimes I feel like we're just juggling so many things that our kids need to know that we're available. We're there for them, and as we're putting our priorities in the right place, they're seeing that, they're modeling us modeling that, and that we're imitators of Christ, and they're catching that. But I think if we're saying all those things, but we're not actually there for them to walk through those things with them, then we miss a major mark for them.
can I add just one little thing?
Yes.
And that is, moms need to remember how it felt to be the age of their daughters. You know, who of us would want to go back and be that age again? Never. So if we think about that and remember how emotionally everything just seemed chaotic, and we were, we didn't have all the answers. So be sensitive. Think about that. Remember that. And then don't shame our children when they make mistakes. Understand that we've made mistakes, we've walked that way, and say, come on, we'll do better.
Serve a redemptive God. We keep
right.
going back
That's
to
right.
that. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I'm telling you, there's got to be, maybe listening on Facebook Live or as you listen on the podcast, I'm hoping that there's some moms out there, some women out there that are feeling encouraged. Because raising kids spiritually, giving them a faith foundation is not easy. And Lydia, I want to ask you, you have some really cool ways of maximizing the moments in our lives, the holidays, the traditions, the customs. You have a cool resource that helps people do that. Can you just kind of inspire the moms that are listening about how they can leverage, infuse faith into those life moments that matter for kids?
So what I created is called actually My Faith Box, and it's really to kind of help guide parents one step at a time, just very simple. I think so much of us, we just would say we're just so overwhelmed We're just trying to keep our kids clean and fed, and that they're like alive at the end of the day. That's kind of where, like, the goal, like they made it and we're all still alive. So there's so many just things that come up that we just have to take care of. But the spiritual formation of our children, I think it just keeps falling behind because there's so many immediate needs that are happening. And so the Faith Box is really just a resource that we created, and you can do it yourself, really. But it's just being intentional in those moments. For the Faith Box, it's from birth to age 18. On your child's birthday, you create kind of a faith plan for them for that year, and we've given a suggestion of here's one thing to really focus on, a spiritual discipline or something to really just kind of drill in and just really focus on for that child for that year, or preparing for a certain milestone. And then the holidays and traditions, those are just sweet times to build unity within your home, but there's so many of them that are just grounded in our faith that we can go through that whole time without really leveraging that. And so just slowing down, just doing one little thing today, but I would say put it on your calendar. If you don't put it on your calendar like it's a meeting that you're going to and that somebody is going to be sitting there and waiting for you, it just keeps getting pushed to the back burner. And so really creating a very specific plan for your children to be intentional.
I hope the listeners are picking up on what Lydia is saying is be intentional. Most parents want to make those connections, they just don't have the tools to do it. And My Faith Box is an intentional, wonderful tool to do that. So you really do need to check that out. We need to wrap up. We got one last question, and then Jeremy and I are going to tease a couple of the questions that we're going to share in the next episode, because we're going to make this a part 2.
Yes, we are.
So it's not going to be live. It's not going to be live, but it'll sound like all this live background noise is going on. So last question, Dr. Tolbert, kind of wrapping this up here. You know, we've talked about moms and relationships with daughters. I want to take a step up in generational discipleship. You know, there's a phrase out there, it takes a village. Chap Clark, friend of probably several of ours up here, he argues that the Deuteronomy 6 passage is not limited to generation, but to the entire village. And I think he's right. The church is our village. They mentor our kids, our aunts, our uncles. Dr. Tolbert, speak from a grandmother's perspective, okay? Here's the question. What is a special way a grandmother can connect, mentor, and love on her grandchildren?
Oh my goodness. Grandparents, grandmothers, it's so much fun. What a wonderful time of life to be there with the grandchildren and just playing with them, spending time with them, listening. I think one of my biggest roles as grandmom is to listen to my grandsons. I have 3 beautiful grandsons, Josiah, Judah, and Jeremiah. And just to listen to them, to sit on the bed at night or sit on the bed in the daytime or play with them, play basketball and all of this, and listen to their heart. It's so wonderful. I think our example, again, as a role model. And, you know, they don't need us to preach to them. They're getting it everywhere. Just live it out. Be that example. Paul told Timothy that the authentic faith in his grandmother Lois was what he saw in Timothy. So wouldn't it be wonderful if that said of our grandchildren, that they see our authentic faith, which means it's up to us to nurture our relationship with the Lord.
Wow.
I'm telling you, you guys that are listening, what a treat. I just want to say to you guys, I thank God that He has put you in a form of leadership where you can encourage and lead, not just women, but us knucklehead men too.
Yes.
So appreciative of your time. And yes, next week, if you're listening to the podcast, next week we will have these ladies back on again, and we're going to take another step in. We've kind of discussed the levels of women and the issues related to women. But now we're going to take another step in and talk about their ministry world.
That's right. Now, just to clarify, it's actually not going to be...
Yes, I can tell I messed up. I saw everybody freaking out.
Just to
I was
clarify,
like, what do I do in this moment?
It's a live show. I'm rescuing you live here.
You.
It's not going to be next week. It's going to be about 4 or 5 weeks down the road. We'll announce it coming up.
That's
We've
right.
already pre-programmed all of our next
That's right.
slides.
So what I
you got to
mean
keep
is,
listening. Yes.
Don't listen to anything I said.
So Jeremy, let's tease them with a couple of questions that we have for what's coming up, because you said knucklehead. In our family, my wife is the prophet. You know, there's times I just miss it, and she speaks such wisdom to me. And the questions we've got lined up, I think, are wisdom type questions for these ladies.
And they're for men.
They're for men to hear.
The men need to hear what we're about to say.
These ladies
What
have been
they're about to
speaking
say.
to ladies, but next episode they're going to speak to the men. Look down the list. I want you to share one that you think is going to be a real attention getter, and you share one, I'll share one. How about that?
Now, not to make this about boys versus girls, but don't you love when people qualify like that?
Exactly.
That really mean we're trying to make it about boys versus girls, but whatever. What are some things you wish men who are in ministry knew about what it's like to be a woman in ministry?
Or how about, where do you think men in ministry have it easier than women do?
How about Ron doing the bobbing of the head? Did y'all get that on video? I want that to be a boomerang.
Exactly.
Quickly.
I can see that coming back to haunt me on a bobblehead going, yeah, okay, here we go.
Happen. Hey, listen, ladies, thank y'all so much for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you're about to do. I can't wait to hear it. And thank you guys for listening, whether it's on Facebook Live or on the podcast. It always means so much that you guys would engage with us at the D6 Podcast. Love you guys. Have a great week of ministry.
See you
and
next
tell me
week.
when you turn it off. I'll smile till you do.